short express version of this motor design calculator, how to use it. I'm going to fill in the yellow cells, and then we'll look at the possible band configurations at the bottom. I'll tell you how to choose one and what it means. So unstretched length of one full rubber band flattened. So what that means is you take a rubber band like this and you flatten it out like this, and don't stretch it, but measure this length. And I did that earlier, and I got the length equals 0.101 meters, 10.1 centimeters. So that goes here. Maximum comfortable stretch distance. Another name for this is strain. So you're actually finding the strain. So you hook this, get that stationary, and then grab this end and stretch it as far as you feel like you really should without being like endangering the band. And I did this, and I felt like a distance of, call it distance X, is 0.45 meters. So basically I stretched this thing, the distance that I stretched is about 4.5 times its original length. And that's what's called the strain. So let me put in 0.45, and you can see down here maximum comfortable strain is there. We're going to refer back to that. Another thing I did is I measured how much tension was in this thing when I stretched it. I used a force meter to do it. You can use a spring scale. The tension, when I had this all stretched out, was I think 16.2 newtons. So that goes here. And now we've got some other calculations. So 16.2 divided by 2 is 8.1. A band is 2 strands. A single strand is going to have half the tension in it that the total rubber band has. And then boing, if you want to know what that is, watch my other video that's a little longer where I explain things. So now I need to think about the car. I need to know what the maximum possible motor force is without exceeding, without making the wheels spin out. And I need to know what the total available motor span is. So here's what I mean by these things. The rubber bands are going to hook on right here onto this nose. And they're going to have some kind of a string that's going to go from here to the back axle. So the span is from right there where you hook the motor on to right here at the axle. And let's just suppose that's 0.53 meters. And let's also suppose that you've done some testing and you have found that the max, not wax, force is 40 newtons. So if you have more than 40 newtons of tension in this, when you wind it up, your wheels are just going to spin out and bad things are going to happen. So this is the span I've got to work with, that the motor is stretching into, like the motor's sitting in and stretching into. And this is the maximum force when I've stretched those bands fully. So maximum force is 40. And the span is 0.53. I'm just making this up. It's different for all the cars. Okay, got a bunch of information down here. It says possible band configurations, number of individual strands. If you're doing any odd numbers, you're going to have to cut the rubber bands and make individual strings. There are pluses and minuses to that. The even numbers are easy. There's some caveats, but they're easy because 2 strands is just one full whole rubber band. 4 strands is 2 rubber bands. 6 strands is 3 rubber bands. The goal of this is to do the most work when you're stretching the rubber bands and have the most energy. And the most energy you can see here is 10.1 joules, and the least is 7.28. But this one is not feasible. And it's not feasible because in order to do that, you would have to take one little strand that is 0.02 meters long. So you get a little tiny piece of rubber band that's 2 centimeters long, and you stretch that rubber band 51 centimeters. So you're going to break the rubber band if you do that. If you could do it, it'd be an awesome motor. The strain is just 22. And remember, the strain that I said we would refer to as 4.45. We need to stay around that or under it, because that was what you deemed like the limit for safety for your bands. So really, if we're going to stick to it, it's these things down here that I'm highlighting. So that's not too bad. 8.6 joules, if we can do that one. 8.3 joules. They get worse as we go down. So let's investigate this one where the strain is just under the threshold. Go over. 5 strands. So 5's not great. It's not too bad. And the motor, the bands need to be 0.0, so 9.8 centimeters long. So what you would need to do is get some rubber bands and cut them with scissors and get 5 strands. You could make them a little longer, but then you need to group them together, and you need to tie probably some fishing line and a really tight knot there and a really tight knot there, and this distance would be 9.8 centimeters. And then you would have exactly what is called for here. So it'd be 5 bands. The Boeing would be 9.1. We're not going to talk about Boeing right now. But the length is this. It's going to stretch 43 centimeters. So you have work over a lot of distance and you get a lot of joules. An easier thing would be to do this one. So 6 strands means you could get away with 1, 2, 3 rubber bands right on top of one another. And then you could just hook the string to that. And this number, this is how long the band should be, 11 centimeters. Just normally a band is 10, so that's pretty close. What's probably going to happen, though, is since you're taking something that's a little shorter and you're going to try to stretch it all the way to that back axle, you probably won't be able to stretch it this full distance, because you're going to exceed the 40 newtons by the time you get there. But you're going to get close to this much energy out of it. So another option is to try 4 bands or 4 strands, which would be 2 rubber bands. The problem is they need to be 8 centimeters long, and if you're just doing 2 rubber bands on top of one another, like this and like this, they're going to be 10.1 centimeters long. So it's a little too long. So the advantage of, for any of these, you can just cut the individual bands and then you can tie them up on the ends to create your own custom motor that has exactly this length and exactly this many bands in it to give you hopefully exactly this much work. All right, so for your car, you might, or your rubber bands, you might want to try different rubber bands. You'll need to do your own measurements here. If you use the class rubber bands, you're welcome to use these 3 numbers, but make sure that you figure out how much force your car can handle and put it in here, and make sure that you measure the span and put it in there. And then also, this is probably not going to be exactly right. The whole